good grasp of what Cleveland is. I couldn't think of a better person to bring up first than Joe Cimperman, who's the president of Global Cleveland. Global Cleveland for years has sort of been that organization that has welcomed the immigrant community, I guess, into Cleveland and made this a welcoming city as much as they've welcomed us over the past 12 hours or so. Cleveland has welcomed immigrants for generations. And Joe, if you don't mind coming up and giving us a bit of a flavor of Cleveland, we'd be ever so appreciative.
Thank you so much, President Lennox. We appreciate you. We appreciate you bringing the incredible power of Irish America to Cleveland. We're not always this quiet, but we wanted to make sure that we were respectful for Her Excellency being here, so we told everybody, tone it down a bit, would you? I also want to say quickly to the man who's taking photographs, who is documenting this better than anybody, and I would say the best in the country, Mr. Dan Hansen, who tells me that he doesn't come from the great county of Mayo, which so many of our Irish sisters and brothers do, but County
Monaghan.
Thank you.
Mighty Monaghan.
Yes. So we're fortunate to have even the person who's recording this being from there. To Her Excellency Geraldine Byrne-Nason, welcome to the city of Cleveland. When I was telling my daughter Maeve that I was meeting you, she said, "Daddy, I remember a few years ago you met another Irish ambassador," and she remembered her name, and it was Ann Anderson. She said, "I believe in between was an Irish ambassador named Daniel Mulhall." And I said, "That's right, Maeve." And she said, "Daddy, does Ireland always have more women than men in leadership?" And I said, "Maeve, you may be onto something." And as the only non-Irishman in a family of 4, I could say that I certainly appreciate you and thank you for everything you do for everybody. And you welcoming those young women from St. Joe's Academy was very special last night, and I think they really got a lot out of it. We are celebrating a birthday. 200 years ago this year, 200 years ago this year, the first person from Ireland stepped foot in the city of Cleveland. 200 years ago, in 1822. And so it's so fitting that we have Her Excellency the Ambassador here. And we can talk in Cleveland about our intersection with the Irish community, which is legend. We could talk about the great boxer Johnny Kilbane, who came here and was known internationally for his ability to perform in the ring. But what a lot of people remember too is his role as a public servant after his boxing career was over, both in the judiciary and in the legislature, proving time and again what the Irish community gives to this community. Yes, a sense of how to fight and how to be passionate, but more importantly, perhaps more difficultly, how to govern. We also remember here in the suffrage movement, 100 years ago, Lucia McCurdy McBride, one of the greatest fighters for women's suffrage in America, an Irish woman who came from Cleveland, who made sure that people were going to be represented. And we know now today in Cleveland, 1 out of every 6 people claims some Irish ancestry. Family after family, building the city of Cleveland, from bricks and mortar to our courtrooms, from our classrooms to our rooms of surgery, for over 200 years, creating a dynamic of greatness. It's fitting then, when you think about when the Irish community was growing and growing, where we are right now in the City Club. Itself just having celebrated a century of being alive. And between the decade of 1920 and 1930, here in Cleveland, half of our population spoke its first language other than English. 48% of the people who lived here came from somewhere else. And one would think, if one reads the scriptures, this must be what they spoke of Babel. No one can speak to each other. And yet in that time, this icon, where our ambassador is to speak, where presidents and leaders and civil rights icons have spoken from this podium, this icon was formed with the Cleveland Foundation, with our metro parks, with the reboot of our library. Isn't Cleveland, like Ireland, an example of when you integrate people from all over the world, you are at the precipice of your nation's greatest greatness? And so much so is the Irish community part of that. Technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And when one looks at Ireland today, I have to say, Madam Ambassador, there are so many of us who look at you with great admiration for the Polish community, the Romanians, the Brazilians, the Italians, and the Nigerians, and now 60,000 Ukrainians. And when I say 60,000 Ukrainians, people go, that's nice. In a nation of 5 million, what that would mean in the United States would be 4.9 million Ukrainians per capita of our population. Just think about that. The nation of Ireland has welcomed per capita what in the United States would be 5 million, almost 3 times the size of Cuyahoga County, or in Cleveland on a sunny day of March 17th, our St. Patrick's Day parade. We also want to specifically say to the ambassador how, if it's true that every nation's greatest export is her people, Ireland is one-upping the world once again. And the ambassador knows this so well from her work in the United Nations of Resolution 2594, about how peace is being exported from Ireland, and I dare say perhaps teaching countries like the United States about the peaceful transition of power. Madam Ambassador, your work is exemplary. The contribution of the Irish community to Cleveland is exemplary. And we only have to think in a city that is as diverse as we are, with our mayor who welcomed you robustly last night, and our council president, and of course Councilman Kerry McCormick, that it's so interesting how we often think about the traffic coming from Ireland to the United States, and yet the traffic going back in 1845 with Frederick Douglass, who had to meet with Daniel O'Connell and say for the first time in his life as a black person, he felt like a human and not property. It is Ireland that teaches us again and again who we are as a human family, not an Irish family, not an African American family, not an American family, but a family. Madam Ambassador, I think it's clear from this son of Slovenian immigrants how grateful we are to you and the people of Ireland. And the only way that we can truly express our gratitude, Madam Ambassador, is if you come back every single month from here on out so we can say thank you. Madam Ambassador, it is such an honor to be in your presence. Thank you so very much.
Joe, that was wonderful and moving words. You're certainly very passionate about Cleveland, and that showed last night at City Hall. And Mark shows a similar passion, and I know all of you Clevelanders have that passion for your city. That's why we're so glad to be here. I love, Joe, that you used the phrase 1 in 6 in Cleveland claim Irish heritage. And again, we talk about that 40 million number. I have no idea, no way of knowing whether or not it's a real number or not, but going back to Irish Network USA and who we're trying to attract as members, you want to be Irish, you're Irish as far as we're concerned. However that looks, whatever you believe, if you believe you're Irish, you're Irish. So please make sure you go back to your cities and spread that.